Hello and welcome to Battle for the White House. This is your show that keeps you up to date with the latest news from the run-up to the world's most powerful elections. I'm your host, Peter Stemmet, and here's a quick look at what's coming up in this episode. Donald Trump shakes up his campaign and demotes his top advisor. A hacker posts contact information for almost 200 congressional Democrats. And Joe Biden makes his debut campaign appearance with Hillary Clinton. Hello again and welcome. Donald Trump restructured his campaign team for the second time in 2 months, fending off suggestions that his presidential run is in crisis, as polls show Hillary Clinton cruising towards victory. Trump, who is tanking in swing states, hired a news executive from a malicious anti-Clinton website as his campaign CEO and promoted a leading Republican strategist to campaign manager. That CEO is Stephen Bannon, the executive chairman of the popular conservative website Breitbart News, and the new manager is leading Republican pollster Kellyanne Conway. The shakeup comes with chairman Paul Manafort under fire in the press after being named in a Ukrainian corruption scandal. It is the second personnel shakeup at the top since June 20th, when Trump dropped his first manager, Corey Lewandowski.
And fire anybody he wants from his campaign. They can make him read new words from a teleprompter. But he is still the same man who insults Gold Star families, demeans women, mocks people with disabilities, and thinks he knows more about ISIS than our generals.
Republican presidential hopeful Donald Trump has unveiled his anti-terrorism plan. Trump says he will implement extreme vetting of immigrants and suspend immigration from certain countries to protect the United States.
Republican presidential hopeful Donald Trump unveiled his anti-terrorism plan, saying he would implement extreme vetting of immigrants and suspend immigration from certain countries to protect the United States. In a policy speech, the billionaire real estate mogul, who is vying with Hillary Clinton for the White House, vowed to crush and destroy the Islamic State group, accusing Clinton and President Barack Obama of allowing it to grow.
If I become president, the era of nation building will be brought to a very swift and decisive end. Our new approach, which must be shared by both parties in America, by our allies overseas, and by our friends in the Middle East, must be to halt the spread of radical Islam.
He also pledged to launch a commission on radical Islam to root out jihadist networks and stop radicalization of young Americans. Trump called for a new approach to fighting terror, slamming the policies put in place by Obama and Clinton, who served as his first Secretary of State.
We should only admit into this country those who share our values and respect our people. In the Cold War, we had an ideological screening test. The time is overdue to develop a new screening test for the threats we face today. I call it extreme vetting.
Meanwhile, Clinton believes that part of the appeal for her opponent Donald Trump is xenophobic and racist and misogynistic and offensive.
I have said we are not going to be deporting hard-working people and break up families. I've been on record for a year and a half about this, and that will be how I direct the Department of Homeland Security to act. So we have to reject and stand up against the appeals to the kind of bigotry and the use of bluster and bullying that we see coming from Trump's campaign. But let's not forget the real economic challenges that too many Americans of all backgrounds are facing today.
Now, many critics say Americans are starting to see through Trump's hateful ideology as the poll gap between him and Clinton widens.
Let's take a look now at statistics of the national origin of illegal immigrants coming into the States. Here you can see this pie chart giving you an indication. 56% from Mexico, not surprising. Also 22% from other Latin American countries and 22% from Asia, Europe and Africa. So that's that look at things. But we also take a look at the states with the most unauthorized immigrants. And this might be somewhat of a surprise to you. Nevada right at the top there with 7.6%, California 6.3%, Texas 6.3%. Now remember, California and Texas, curious cases in many ways, because California will pretty much vote Democrat no matter what, Texas Republican no matter what. However, Nevada, not so much New Jersey, but certainly Nevada, Florida, and even Arizona to a certain extent are among the states that could be red or could be blue. And with Trump's rhetoric, it's not the kind of thing that would help the Republicans in a general election. Trump's revised tax reform plan came as no surprise either. His campaign had been hinting for several weeks that a partial rewrite was in the works. The presumed objectives of the revision were threefold, but Hillary Clinton highlighted the differences between her economic plan and that of her presidential rival.
Donald Trump blasted Hillary Clinton in an economic policy speech that sought to pick off some of her supporters, while the Democratic presidential nominee dismissed a rival's plan as a repackaging of old Republican ideas. But Trump spared no comments when it came to his rival policies.
The city of Detroit is the living, breathing example of my opponent's failed economic agenda. Every policy that has failed this city and so many others is a policy supported by Hillary Clinton. She supports the high taxes and radical regulation that force jobs out of your community.
Trump fused his populist message with appeals designed to win support from the left, such as defraying households' childcare costs, alongside a full embrace of policies on regulation, corporate taxes, and energy production to try to please skeptics on the right.
Hillary Clinton has supported the trade deals stripping this city and this country of its jobs and its wealth. She supported Bill Clinton's NAFTA. She supported China's entrance into the World Trade Organization. She supported job-killing trade deal, and that was a really bad one, with South Korea. And she supports the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
The speech came at a critical moment in Trump's campaign. The latest round of national polls showed him losing ground in the race with Clinton. But Clinton said she would defend U.S. interests against China and reject the proposed specific trade agreement, as she highlighted differences between her economic plan and that of presidential rival Donald Trump.
I will stop any trade deal that kills jobs or holds down wages, including the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I oppose it now, I'll oppose it after the election, and I'll oppose it as president. And there is Trump's tax plan. He would give trillions in tax cuts to big corporations, millionaires, and Wall Street money managers. That would explode our national debt and eventually lead to massive cuts in priorities like education, health care, and environmental protection.
The difference in policies is very visible. Nearly all Republican candidates argue that the tax code is broken and needs major reforms to boost economic growth, increase investment, and make U.S. companies more competitive. Meanwhile, the Democratic nominees have focused more on using the tax code to both ensure economic fairness and collect more revenue to fund government programs they find important.
Trump's top aide has denied receiving payments from the former Russian-backed Ukrainian government. Reports suggest that there was undisclosed cash payments to Paul Manafort between 2007 and 2012. Hillary Clinton's campaign has called for Trump's team to disclose any pro-Russia links.
U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's campaign is questioning the ties between the top political aide to her rival Donald Trump and a pro-Russia political party in the Ukraine. Clinton's campaign is claiming the alleged links represent further evidence of Republican nominee Trump's cozy relationship with Russia. Reports suggest ledgers found in Ukraine show $12.7 million in undisclosed payments to Paul Manafort, Trump's campaign manager. Manafort, who has had several international clients, including Philippine dictator Ferdinand Marcos, denied any wrongdoing.
We want Americans to understand who Donald Trump the man is, not just Donald Trump the candidate, or, the composite of his career, not just from a business standpoint or a political standpoint, from a human standpoint as well.
Vitlana Olifera, a spokeswoman for Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau, confirmed that the documents were recovered, but cautioned that the probe was in its early stages.
It's a bit early to say if we really will have a separate investigation related to the name of Manafort, since we are still studying them. I want to stress that his name appears not just once, but we cannot say if he physically received the name assigned to him, as there are other signatures near his name.
Serhiy Leshenko, a Ukrainian legislator, said he believes that the ledgers correctly reflected what he described as the funneling of corrupt money.
I'm convinced that this information is accurate and that these documents are genuine, because all this content can be confirmed by historical events, evidence and statements given by other public figures who are on the list. This is corrupt money, because this is a shadow accounting. It's not fair money. This is cash stolen from Ukraine's economy.
Trump's relationship with Russia has drawn scrutiny throughout the campaign, most recently when he encouraged hackers from that country to find Clinton's missing emails, an apparent invitation for a foreign power to intervene in a U.S. election. Trump also has frequently praised Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Joining us in studio now is Tinashe Chuchu, Wits lecturer. Tinashe, good to see you again. Thank you so much for coming in again. Let's begin there with Donald Trump, and he certainly was vocal in the last week, telling us about his economic plan and his anti-terrorism plan. Hillary Clinton says it won't work. Let's start with the economic plan. How Republican is it?
Yes, first of all, he claims he's a Republican, and if you look at his economic plan, he was saying that everyone who earns up to $30,000 a year would be taxed 1%, and everyone who earns from $30,000 to $100,000 would be taxed 5%. So I think that it's pretty Republican. It's only that, unfortunately, every time he makes a speech, the sideshow takes center stage, but it's pretty conservative, yes.
All right, so speaking of the sideshow, and we'll come back to his anti-terrorism plans a little bit later. Sideshow, Paul Manafort, front and center of all of that. What did you make of what took place?
I think it's unfortunate that he had to bring in a new CEO, he had to bring in a new campaign manager, and it seems like this is undermining Paul Manafort. That's what I think, because he took out Cory Lewandowski because they felt that he wasn't in line with the Trump vision, but now bringing in a new CEO and a new campaign manager, I think it's undermining Manafort.
And indeed, all these changes and these shakeups, and predictably the Clinton campaign would hit back and accuse him of being all over the show. Is that just politics, or has Hillary got a point there?
I think there's a point, because if you look at the new campaign manager, you would see that we're looking at Conaway. People were saying this is a way of trying to appeal to female voters. That's what people were saying, because people actually don't know what Kellyanne Conaway is actually bringing to the table. People actually don't even know about her background, and I think I think Clinton would have a valid point. If you say Trump is all over the place, yes.
Now, speaking of being all over the place, one of the criticisms of him all along has been that he's been very short on policies.
Yes.
He's got a lot to say about Mexicans and the wall and ISIS, but he doesn't actually tell us what his plan is. We spoke about economic policy a second ago. Let's look at anti-terrorism. Was he on point? Did he make any good points in your opinion?
Unfortunately, with the anti-terrorism, he's saying, I have a plan to take out ISIS, but I won't tell you what the plan is. So we actually don't know what the plan is. And every time people want to push him for his anti-terrorism plan or his foreign policy plan, he always says, I don't tell anyone, it's a secret. So we actually don't know what it is. And just last week, Clinton said the secret is there's no plan. So I think it's a fair attack to say there's no plan when he doesn't put out a plan.
Should voters be worried when a politician speaks like that? I'm thinking specifically now of that famous quote, George H.W. Bush in 1988, when he spoke of Michael Dukakis and said that my opponent now says that he'll raise taxes as a last resort. And when a politician speaks like that, you know that's one resort he'll be checking into. If Trump is saying that you don't want to know what I'm going to do, or it's so bad you don't want to know, but the voters do want to know, don't they?
I think voters have a right to know, because at the end of the day, this is a person who's going to be appointing Supreme Court judges, a person who's going to be in charge of the strongest military in the world. So people have to know. If you look at the Iraqi war, at least 4,000 soldiers died. People don't talk about the human cost. They only talk about the financial cost. But I think people should know his ISIS strategy, even though he criticizes Obama for having a poor strategy with ISIS, but people actually know the strategy.
Very interesting. Tinashe, hang right there. I'm going to come back to you shortly. Hillary Clinton introduced Vice President Joe Biden at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania this week, while Donald Trump prepared to speak in Ohio on radical Islamic terrorism. She addressed the crowd at her rally, challenging his approach. Clinton attacked Trump for not releasing his tax returns and launching a tax plan that she said is geared towards benefiting his family and his businesses.
Though he has cultivated a reputation as unscripted, Vice President Joe Biden can be practiced when needed, with an instinctive feel for his audience. Biden, who passed on a run for the White House last year, but is reprising a familiar role as a Democratic ambassador to middle class and serving as the determined critic of Donald Trump.
Trump's ideas are not only profoundly wrong, they're very dangerous and they're very un-American. They reveal a profound ignorance of our Constitution.
Now that Trump's public self-immolations have given Clinton a more comfortable advantage, especially in Pennsylvania, she is increasingly seeking the votes of independents and Republicans, uneasy with the former reality star.
He's even called for a new tax loophole. Let's call it the Trump loophole, because it would allow Trump to pay less than half the current tax rate on income from many of his companies. A pretty sweet deal. He would end up paying a rate lower than millions of middle-class families. Now, that is assuming he pays any taxes at all, because we really don't know since we haven't seen his tax returns.
Biden even went on to say that Trump's policies were un-American.
What absolutely amazes me, that he doesn't seem to want to learn it. No, I really mean it. He doesn't seem to want to learn it. He doesn't seem to think it matters. This man is totally, thoroughly unqualified to be President of the United States of America.
Though Clinton's standing is stronger than it had been among the type of voter Biden has often pleaded to be, the vice president's role will help to lock down their support and free up Clinton and others to expand the electoral map. ANN7 Bureau Report.
Donald Trump has said that his Democratic rival for the US presidency, Hillary Clinton, shared directly in the responsibility for riots that erupted in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Speaking at a campaign rally in West Bend, also in Wisconsin, the Republican presidential candidate stressed that the country needed more policing, while stating that Clinton was against the police. Trump claimed that there was a narrative that suggested the police force is racist in the United States, one tacitly supported, he said, by his opponents. The police have been at the center of a series of incidents that have led to the disproportionate deaths of African Americans and Hispanics at their hands. A recent fatal shooting of an 18-year-old armed black man in the predominantly African American north side of Milwaukee last Saturday sparked riots that wounded police officers and set fire to cars and businesses. A hacker or group of hackers using the name Goosifer 2.0 posted the private email addresses and cell phone numbers of almost 200 current and former Democratic members of Congress. The disclosure is the latest dump of information stolen in recent cyber attacks on a number of Democratic Party organizations, including the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Guccifer 2.0 posted a spreadsheet containing the contact information of 193 current and former Democratic House members as part of a larger document dump on his personal blog. In an accompanying blog post, Guccifer said accessing the DCCC server was even easier than in the case of the DNC breach. Included in the spreadsheet were the cell phone numbers of House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi and House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer. Still in studio with us is Wits lecturer Tinashe Chuchu. Let's start with that cyber attack. It's the kind of thing that could potentially be blown out of proportion. How serious is this one in your view?
I think that cyber attack could could easily start wars, because probably when you look at the relationship that Russia and the States has had over the past 60 years, such a cyber attack could easily start wars. So I think it's a fair challenge when the other party says we can't trust you with sensitive classified information. Yes.
We saw the violence there in Milwaukee,
yes.
Also previously the shootings in Texas.
Yes.
I'm thinking of Ferguson and what happened there, even
Yes.
the Pulse nightclub in Florida. A lot of violence taking place in the build-up to this election. More violence than usual, or what's going on?
I think there's more violence than usual. And if you remember the Republican convention, they were saying Blue Lives Matter. That is code for saying cops' lives matter. So I think there's more violence this time because of the, what do you call this movement, Black Lives Matter and Ferguson, like almost every week cops were getting shot. And this time, this election cycle, definitely there's more violence.
And then I want to talk about Joe
Yes.
Biden. We see he's coming out campaigning with Hillary Clinton. At one stage in the Democratic primaries, there was a question, will he or won't he?
Yes.
We know he never did.
Yes.
He's been President Obama's vice president now for 8 years. Given his age, he's unlikely to run for
Yes.
president in the future. When you look back at his career, would you say that it was a lost opportunity that he never actually made it as a president, or was he a good guy and he just a good VP maybe?
I think it was a calculated move, because you find with Joe Biden, this time around, to be honest, everyone thought Jeb Bush would be the other party's nominee, but Joe Biden cited personal reasons, the loss of his son. So I think it was a calculated move. I don't think even Sanders, I think Sanders was going to have a better chance than Biden.
Very interesting.
I think people will remember him as a great vice president, because you don't want to be a great vice president and people remember you as a failed candidate, just like Ben Carson. People remembered him as a great doctor, a great surgeon, but now people remember him as a failed candidate. So I don't think he was going to risk his legacy.
Legacy very
Yes.
important in politics.
Yeah.
Tinashe Chuchu, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure,
Thank
and
you,
I hope
Peter.
you're going to come visit us again.
Yes, the pleasure is all mine.
Thank you so much, as always. Now, Trump has been boasting about building a wall on the Mexican border ever since he announced his candidacy. It now appears that wall could be built sooner than expected, except its geographic location might not be what the Republican had in mind.
When Donald Trump announced he was running for president, he spoke of his dislike for Mexican immigrants. He announced his plan on how to deal with them.
Absolutely, we're going to build a wall, 100%. They go, well, you don't really mean that. That was like when I first started in June. I said right from the beginning, we're going to build a wall. It's going to be a real wall. See that ceiling up there? I mean, this is a wall that if you get up there, you're not coming down very easy.
His rhetoric was unwelcome south of the border.
I declare, I'm not going to pay for that wall.
Well, if Juan, Jose and Jorge aren't going to pay for it, and Bob the Builder won't help,
No, Mark.
then maybe a different kind of wall is required.
This is a dry stone wall, Dizzy. It doesn't need cement to hold it together, just a bit of clever building.
The Wall in Trump campaign is looking for donations on crowdfunding website Indiegogo.com. They plan to build a £250,000 wall of sandbags on the front lawn of a Trump skyscraper on the 30th of August. They need $60,000 in order to make it a reality, and the more money they raise, the bigger the wall will be.
As history shows us, nothing brings two countries together like a wall.
And failure to reach the financial goal will see every dollar raised donated to the Have a Dream Foundation. It's the kind of thing that could have Mr. Trump on the run, from his opponents, hawkish or otherwise. Success or failure, the wall in Trump campaign is sure to leave some footprints in the sand.
Chris, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's that time of the week where we see the latest poll numbers coming out of the United States. Let's take a look at those now, and we'll begin in the key battleground state of Florida. Hillary Clinton still in the lead there, 45 points to 41. Looking good there for her. Remember, Trump needs these battleground states to go his way. They've been going Democrat over the last couple of elections. Ohio, that's another one that's very, very important. Hillary Clinton in the lead again, 45-42. No Republican has ever won the White House without Ohio. Looking at Pennsylvania, this is one that Trump says that he will win. Well, he's trailing at the moment, 49-40, so it's not looking good there either. And then in the next of these battleground states, Virginia, 47-37, Hillary Clinton with a comfortable advantage. And we'll wrap it up with North Carolina, 45-43. Very narrow, but it's still in favor of Clinton. And overall, at the moment, 47.3% of Americans prefer Hillary Clinton compared to 41.2% that prefer Donald Trump. Those are the numbers coming out of the United States this week. Thank you so much for joining us again here on Battle for the White House. Always a pleasure to have you with us. You can follow me on Twitter, and that is at @PStemmet_ANN7, also the channel at ANN7TV. We'll see you again next week when we bring you the latest in the Battle for the White House.